Director of the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Centre at the Consulate General of India in Durban, Dr. Chaitanya Prakash Yogi, Dr. Kanad Narhari, Mr. Guy Bhatri, Mr. Sipiwe Mchunu, Mr. Piyush Khandelwal, distinguished guests and online members, welcome to Antartaan, the first episode of a series of interactions between two artists about their experiences of synchronization or their inner tones or internal rhythms with their expectations of performance and programs. Today, in our midst, we have two very dynamic and leading artists, and that is Dr. Kanad Narhari and Mr. Guy Bhatri, who will be doing an interaction. Mr. Dr. Kanad Narhari is a sitar player from the US of Florida, and Mr. Guy Bhatri is a guitarist and sitar player from South Africa. A little bit about Dr. Kanad Narhari. He was born in Manchikeri, a small village in the Western Ghats, Karnataka, India, to his illustrious parents Vidwan Narhari Keshava Bhatt and Sumangala Bhatt. His father, Vidwan Narhari Keshava Bhatt, is a renowned Sanskrit scholar, poet, and author of many works in Sanskrit on theatre plays and yakshagana, a form of traditional performing art. Therefore, it's not surprising that the young Kanad Narhari would have been exposed to Indian performing arts, music, and literature. Mr. Guy Bhatri was born in a small coastal town outside of Durban, KwaZulu-Natal, South Africa, and Guy Bhatri's distinctive acoustic style has been influenced by traditional South African culture, music, and instrumentation live performances. Guy also uses an ebow and looper to create a synth-like textures and he is influenced by many artists. Guy has received numerous accolades for his recorded work as well as live performances. We now welcome Dr. Kanad Narhari and Mr. Guy Bhatri for their interaction in today's program, the first episode of Antartaan or Inner Tone. Welcome.
Thank you, Srishti. Thank you, everyone.
Hey, Panditji. Thanks so much for having us.
How are you, Panditji?
So lovely to see you, Guruji.
See you, man. Same here. You know, when a couple of weeks ago, I started receiving the messages from Dr. Yogi's office and Srishti and Sandhya. I know they all were sending the messages, and I was so excited for a few reasons. One is I can see I can see that the faces that I love a lot. And man, between me and you, that's a different genre. But these people, they are doing such a great service to the mankind by doing this kind of thing. Like, okay, this even this kind of concept is also hard to find. People making the concepts and giving us a chance to express our we both of us, our feelings, we can probably talk for 1 year nonstop if that's possible. Human physiology. But anyway, thank you. Yeah.
Thanks so much for having us, guys. What a privilege as well. And for me and Kanada just to connect again. We've chatted quite a bit through the course of the year, but it's so nice to actually kind of share in a different platform and share our love for this music and our understandings of this music and our the sort of integration that we've experienced together. It's so nice to be here.
Yeah, thank you. So, they made our life very easy by giving us some of the ideas about where we need to focus and everything. So, if we talk about, like, before going to the topic itself, so Guy, can you talk about the origin of Nadi and what are all the influences that made our album named as Nadi? So then that will lead us to the topic that we're going to talk about, I guess.
Sure. I think it's a great start, actually. I think, so me and Kanada, we put out a record at the end of last year called Nadi. And it was such an interesting exchange for me. I can speak from my own personal experience, was that I've always had a love of Indian classical music, but not always necessarily someone to share it with, and not necessarily someone to teach and explain things so much. And such a different understanding of the world of music completely from what I kind of have been doing for 20 years. And it was such a big learning curve and something that was initially quite difficult for me. But it just became we had such a chemistry and such a synergy. And when we were touring the album around South Africa, we would just listen to music all the time, and we would share different things. I was showing Kanada a whole bunch of music that he was not familiar with, and vice versa. And I think that as a result, we really understood each other quite intimately on a personal level, and the telepathy in the musical exchange was just so just so real and so honest and sincere and just full of love, really. And I think it was such a great experience for both of us to kind of cross those borders and cross those lines and really be open to these many, you know, universes within the musical world. A lot of people think that music is a universal language, and I think that there's some truth in that statement, but I also think that there's many universes. And Kanada certainly opened up multiple universes for me, and I'm kind of indebted to him sort of eternally for that.
Oh, thank you. Guy, while you talk about that journey that we did, most of the time, do you remember like we used to listen to music, and for example, I remember I was exposed to Kora first time in my life. Right? So I didn't know about Kora. I probably knew some weird instruments and stuff, but I never had a chance to listen to them because it happened like I was in India studying BMS Ayurvedic degree, and then you're so focused, except doing your vocal practice. Then back then I was doing vocal practice. So apart from that, we didn't have Spotify, we didn't have iTunes and stuff, and
Sure.
then you had like access to very few cassettes that come through. And also, I was placed somewhere in a village in that college was based in a village in near Govan border called Sirsi, called near Jog Falls, which is a famous waterfall. So anyway, so then what happened? I was like working. I have to work and do music, and then also again vocal sitar in the evenings. You didn't get much chance to the exposure to world music. And when I went to Nepal, I had chance a little bit to collaborate with other musicians. That was mainly like rock and jazzy rocky. Sometimes they didn't know what they were doing, but it was some that kind of performance. But first time in my life, like I heard Kora, and that triggered me so in depth. Like I listened to Kora first time in my life in your car. That's for sure. Either we were going to one of the festivals or we were touring throughout that. So that whole the music that coming from that part of the world, which probably has a lot to deal with the influence of the West and the East, because
Sure.
from the beginning, Europe has always traveled through those areas, and India traveled through those areas, Chinese traveled through those areas to make that. I mean that area somehow it is untouched, and somehow it has a lot of influence from rest of the world. I believe so, and then I used to look at you, hey, are you okay? And whenever I asked you, are you okay, you were not okay. I mean, there's some worries passing through your mind, or some kind of, you told me that later. You never told me that then. You told me after a few months, you're taking that as a reference. Yeah.
Mm.
Anyway, so I think that's what our inner tone is. Inner tone is not just the tone that we, okay. So even I know you spoke better about this in one of our interviews with that lady. I forgot. So this so this is tone for most of the musicians and musicologists, and for people like us, we believe in humanity. We believe in understanding that relationship not only with our strings and instruments, but with our aura, with our chemistry, that which kind of infuses everything, man. The music and everything that flows between each of us. I mean, that can be transferred, I guess, with good intention, and when the receiver is open, then the giver can give that receiver. It's like in me and you, I guess both the same. Like I received a lot from you. I learned a lot. Like there's little kalimba that's over there. That kalimba looks like for most of the people it may be a thumb piano. For me, it few of the chords that can be played on the kalimba. It opens up a complete different scenario where I can understand myself. In you probably heard about Vedanta, right? I mean, there's the famous quote from the Vedas. Let me simplify it. Tattvamasi, Tattvamasi, which means you are the same, you are the God, or that God is you, or you are the God, or that kind of meaning. For me, like all these essential elements of that we exchange together with our music on the road while changing. No, we didn't change the tires, but while we uh, while checking the pressure of the tires when we were driving, or maybe like you went out listening to somebody's WhatsApp message or something. It's all like for in all these essential elements that we share together on the stage, off the stage, is antarnada and tal, the antartaan and antartal, also the rhythm and the tone that we exchange together. And what I feel like I give, I mean, most of I would like you to speak, but what I like to take this from here is the tone is also essentially somehow monitored by ego of the ego. I mean, ego in the sense like we have 24 tattvas. That ego, there is a tattva called ahankara there, right? So ahankara is altered ego, or I think Dr. Yogiji will speak better about it. I've been kind of not in touch much longer. So that principle flows, absorbs everything, and when we know what we are doing, like man, we shared so many such things in our lives, so many such interesting moments in life. So where we surrender to each other, but not like physical surrendering, like how normal understanding. We surrender to each other's understanding and knowledge, and yeah, I mean, I leave it to you. I'm like, yeah, as I said, I know in the beginning, we can talk like this forever. we just, yeah.
I think the thing that I resonate with there is how you were talking about the kora. The kora is also, it's for people who don't know, it's a West African instrument. It's a harp, 21 string harp, and there was something amazing that I remember you saying when you were hearing, and we were hearing all this West African music, and Kanada was pointing out which rags they were playing, and it was so beautiful for me to hear that because it was so clear that when you made that connection between the two, it was so profound. It also speaks to about how these languages do have some universality, and also how transparent and how clear those kind of communications are. And it was something that I saw in Canada, expressing and explaining this music to me and sharing it with me. The transparency, it was, you couldn't hide behind it. There was no way to lie. There was just a pure sincerity in it. And I think that was such a wonderful thing to share, and also speaks to this idea of inner tone or internal rhythm, where I think there is a collective. There is something kind of universal about these understandings of how across cultures, all across the world, that there are similarities, even, and you don't have to dig too far to find them, and I think there's just small little shifts, small little changes, small little understandings between these musical worlds, which also implies the cultural aspects of those musical worlds and how that affects humanity on another level outside of the music world. But an interesting thing to share in, and definitely something that I feel that we shared in a lot, and I was very fortunate and privileged to have been able to do that.
Those feelings are mutual. Panditji, I would like to know, I mean, So okay, so we used to meet, we used to do those. I would like you to explain, because before each recording, not only the recording, for the practice sessions, like we never recorded all the time. Okay, I think you recorded most of our sessions, whatever we did, but the intention was not to probably like, okay, publish, right? So we never like, probably you got like hundreds of hours of our recordings, but we never had an intention to publish everything that they are recorded for for our enjoyment, like see how it goes. But there's some initial rituals that we did together, and that rituals I would like to you to explain that a little bit. Because they're all rituals helped eventually us to connect each other. The tone and the rhythm, Antartaan.
Sure.
Yeah.
That's a very good point. So what me and Kanata used to do before every session, or before every recording for sure, but before every session, was that Kanata would come with some agarbati, some incense, and we would kind of bless the instruments and the space and ourselves. And I would come with impepo, which is like a sage, a similar kind of burning incense, kind of clearing of the space. And it was the basic simple ritual of that was quite empowering. I think it was a meeting of the worlds, and pepper grows everywhere in KZN, where I am here in South Africa, and Kannada obviously coming from India with the incense. And these small little blessings, these small little exchanges, just I think also just knitted us together more, and once again showed that yeah, things are seemingly different from the outside, but I think once you scratch the surface a little bit, there's once again the universality of these things, and these rituals were quite profound in that way.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, they were very helpful, and you also remember, right? We before getting into songs or anything, we used to go wild and just practice
Yeah.
surgams, practice things. So I think along with that, they were creating, they were kind of giving us so much of peace and calmness to get into the instrument. So this is
Mhm.
not me. I think Ustad Vilayat Khan or someone said this. You have to play instrument until you become one with the instrument. So your instrument, either your sitar, guitar, tanpura, whatever, or singing, you become one with that. So I think we were trying always. What we did, I remember, was to do some songs and go wild. But we imagined that we just playing, but somehow the tones of the sitar and guitar, they were becoming one. I would like,
Mhm.
I mean, everyone to know this here. Uh, Guy Battery listens to. There were times when Guy Battery used to listen to Kishore Amonkar, classical vocal, and many of such classical legends, vocals and instruments for hours together, for 10 hours, 15 hours. To be honest, I never listened to such things in my life. I had, like, in the beginning, I had a cassette from Pandit Ganpati Bhatt Hasangi. So he sang Ragmiya Malhar and few of them, and one from Bhimsen Joshi. Only two of them that I had. I didn't had a chance to listen to anyone else then. I had only two cassettes. And I used to play the same cassettes throughout the day when I was studying in Siddharpur. I was studying my BMS. But today's world is different. Like Guy Buttery has all the access through Spotify, iTunes, like all of us. And also, his brother runs a vinyl shop. So whichever parts of the world's music he wants to listen, he can just go grab those vinyls and or CDs, and he can just play it. But he instead of doing that, he listened to Indian classical music that intensely. And we definitely can imagine who a very famous violin player was playing in front of Indian classical violin player back then was playing in front of of a plant which eventually started flowering then unusual time. Like that particular plant takes time for flowering, and that plant started flowering before it. So that's what I think you will see in Guy Battery. So experiencing of this tone, I mean, that's our third point. I think experience of tone is like his personality itself is a great example of experience. We have this. Hey, like if I'm talking too much, Panditji, you can always interfere. Hey, no, can I?
Sure.
So uh, there's a saying like, okay, you don't have to understand everything by yourself. Like, okay, if I'm teaching music to someone of 10 years old boy, I cannot expect the 10 years old boy to behave in a maturity level of a 40 years old man. So I can transfer certain things to him, but my job is to continuously, constantly see the tones and not that antartaan in that child, and that child will probably do the same thing. The maturity will come at the age of 20 instead of 40. So I think the same thing that we can say in Guy is I have seen that even simple mic checks like sound check. Only that's the only time I have seen him. Okay, he want to do his things first and then not listen to me. Rest of the whole time he was just listening to me. Whatever I disturb him, he was always listening to me. Only during sound check, he wanted to make sure everything in order, so he was not listening to. Right? So yeah, so experience of this tone guy. That's what I want to interpret.
Sure.
You go ahead and we can share.
Well, okay, we have another question here, and this is a good one. It says, do you feel that you are also an instrument like sitar or guitar to feel and experience or invoke this inner tone from within? Do you feel
Yeah,
that you're also kind of an instrument, kind of connected to your music, but also there's kind of a functionality to the physique, the biological connection with the instrument?
I want you to talk. I've been talking a lot. I
Well, I think that there is something there in terms of the sort of physicality of both the sitar and the guitar. I don't know if all instruments have that kind of physicality in that way, but the instruments that certainly rest directly on you, and you know, for example, and this doesn't necessarily mean that one is better than the other, but a piano, you're not removed, but there's a pressing of the keys, where the guitar and the sitar, you really have to be sort of into the instrument. And I suppose there's an aspect of wondering where all of these ideas come from. And some of them are surely from the mind, but I also think that there are sort of physical, sometimes limitations that inform the music in one way or other. And I think that obviously the idea of this inner tone, this idea of internal rhythm, I think that is paramount. That is, once again, music is too transparent. You can't hide that. Whatever it is that you're experiencing in this lifetime um, is immediately sort of employed to the music. There is a way to mask that in some ways, but it's never been an interest of mine. Whether it's pain or joy, I think it's important for me to internalize that, but also express that. And the instrument is one of the most beautiful ways to do that.
yeah, yeah, that's great. I mean, I think whatever you said makes a lot of sense. Also, in a way, the sits in your lap. For example, you hugging your daughter, your son, your wife, your mother, your child, your husband. That hug is possible with the sitar, and where the tumba stands. Even every part of even one single centimeter of the sitar or guitar or the sarod, for example. I mean, in our context we talk about sitar and guitar doesn't go away from your body. The whole sitar and guitar is within your body. So you hugging your sitar, and it's kind of humbleness that surrendering, all this and playing. So that's what becoming one with our instruments, and physically, emotionally, technically, musically. That is true.
Absolutely.
Instruments, yeah.
Awesome.
Cool. Want to go for the next one?
All right. It says here, did you feel that your performance is not done by you, but by something greater and bigger than supporting you as a power of energy when you're playing? So is there something outside of the body? Is there something that you feel is greater than you, that you are sort of connected to or tapping into? You might not feel that, but maybe you do.
But yeah, but many times I played Ragshri in front of someone where I never played Ragshri. Ragshri is a bit of a complicated rag back then, like 10 years ago. It's especially for instrument like sitar. It's the means and the glides between long distance notes. So I played that. That happened, and there was a time. Now it's like this. There was a time when I was not caring. I mean, even before meeting guy, back in India, I was kind of. That wild head, I started playing sitar. I play sitar, whether in front of me there is a big sitarist is standing or big musician is standing or sitting. I don't have to worry. I have to play my best, I'm a king, on the stage. So this kind of today that's not there. That's there in a very, very humble, different way. Back then, when you start your career, probably that's everyone like that. Most of us. Um, um, Back then it happened once that I was playing something like that, and someone is sitting in the back, and I was like playing very nicely in my view. But back then, whatever little I know, I think I presented the best. And at the end, that lady came and told me that you were this thing was good, that thing was good, and everything was good. And she spoke so many things of intricate Hindustani techniques, which were
Wow.
not taught to me, which were never literally taught to me back then. It was like my
Wow.
is Guru Shishya Parampara thing, like the teacher and student. The teacher picks
Yeah.
up whichever raga you play, teacher picks up whichever style of playing you play, but he never asks questions. Like, which means that you surrender to your guru. Guru knows everything, what to teach, and all these things. So I never asked my guru teach that, teach this, and everything. Never asked till today. So he just picks up some raga, I just play. So they are like there are some tans, especially the tans like Boonde ki taan, it's called Krintan. All those things, I never heard those words. I never heard those things,
Wow.
special things. They are all happen. That that lady was telling me. Then I realized somebody told me there's a famous Carnatic vocalist Nagashri Srinivas, and she based in Bangalore. And then I said, yeah, that's true. And then yeah, that happened to me. So
Wow.
things, I think sometime at some point, uh, things cannot be explained, I believe.
Mm,
I'm very,
mm,
very small till to talk about this detail.
mm.
That was an expression.
Sure. One thing that you said a few years ago that I always remembered, you said you spend the first, I might get this wrong, but you spend the first 10 years playing for yourself. You then spend 20 years playing, and then you can play for an audience. You then spend 30 years playing, and then you please your guru. And then you spend 40 years playing, and you can play for the gods.
That kind
And I
of
always appreciated that because 40 years is a very long time. But there's something to be said for that intimacy and that connection that you have with the instrument and with yourself. And maybe the instrument's just a tool, but that always stayed with me. The idea of this progression, and that it's in that order for yourself, for the audience, for your guru, for the gods. I love
yeah,
that. Yeah.
yeah, no, something like that. My father, in a different context, my father told me one day. I asked him, when I was very young, why to do puja? Puja is the worshipping, idol
Yep.
worship and everything. Why do we do puja and stuff? Why can't we directly become like Swami Vivekananda? Because Swami Vivekananda's 10 books, 10 compilation of all his works, they are in 10 books, and those 10 different volumes are translated into every language. So back then,
Sure.
my English was not good. I was reading in Kannada, Kannada translations were available. And I was thinking, why I can't become like Swami Vivekananda? Why I can sit and directly get my realization and stuff. So why to do all these things? My father told me this. Yeah, this is entry level. You do all these things, then you do your meditation with mantras, japas. He's referring to that Hindu context of traditional
Mm.
evolution. And then, okay, first is all you do, idol worship, this, that. So you visualize and you get an idea. And then you prove that that idea was not right. So, you revisit it and do japa of mantras, reciting the mantras. And then you
Sure.
revisit it and then disprove that these mantras are useless. And then you reach to that level. And then you become, it is my purely my father's version. He told me that long ago. So I think the same with our performing ragas or music or anything. That you keep on disproving your own belief that that's like suppressing or not purifying our ego. Okay, I believed this long ago, and that's not true. Believe it,
Mm.
and then
Mm.
grow further from here. I think that's what happens with our music.
Sure. Sure. Hmm.
Sure.
Okay, thank you so much, Dr. Kanad Narhari and Mr. Guy Bachi, for that really intense Antartaan or that intertone and sharing your experiences with us and audience members. We've now come to the part of the program where everybody is excited to experience your duet performance by Dr. Kanad Narhari and Mr. Guy Bachi. As always, they will be mesmerizing us now.
Cool. Let's try something. I think due to the technical difficulties, we're going to try and do a call and response rather than something that is sort of interlocked. So, yeah, let's do it.
See, we didn't speak what we're playing and everything. He just turned on D, which means that's the intertone, I guess. You start in the beginning, Paniji, I'll follow you.
All right.
Yep.
There we go.
Thank you so much, Dr. Kanad Narhari and Mr. Guy Bhatri, for giving us that in-tuned, deep performance. We really enjoyed it, and definitely words cannot express, music definitely does. We've come to the conclusion of today's episode of Antartaan, the first episode, and we'd really like to thank our guest artist today. Without further ado, I'd like to call upon Mr. Sitiwe Umchunu from the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center at the Consulate General of India in Durban to render this afternoon's vote of thanks.
Namaskar. Greeting to all of you. On behalf of Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center at the Consulate General of India, I am honored today to deliver a vote of thanks on today's first episode of Antartaan, means the inner tone. I'd like to thank our two artists. Dr. Kanada Narahari is a sitar player from Florida, USA. Mr. Guy Butchery, he's a guitarist and a sitar player. For conducting a sterling interview today. The interview was so much interesting. We learned so many things that if you're an instrument player, you need to play your instrument up until Gaiji, your instrument, and you are one. Thank you for that. It was noted, sir. Thank you very much, sir. The interview was Bodacha, everything you mentioned, the inner tone of the instrument, talking to the player, it was noted. For that, I'm saying to all of you, Danyabaji. Thank you to Dr. Kanada Narayanji, to Guy Bachariji, Danyabaji. Thank you, sir. On the as Swami Vivekananda cultural team, I'd like to say thank you very much to Dr. Chaitanya Prakash Yogi, Director at the Swami Vivekananda Cultural Center, Mrs. Sristi Harinarayan, Mr. Piyush Kandelwal for making sure that today's program is running perfectly. On our online viewers, I'd like to say please visit our Facebook page so that you'll be updated with all our upcoming cultural programs. On that note, thank you very much to all of you. Have a wonderful Christmas till we meet again, good people. Namaskar.